What's going on, everybody? Tom here with Keto Lifestyle, and today we are making a delicious keto granola. You can see some of it right here, perfectly granola chunks. Now you can make this into a bar, or like I'm gonna do, just pour some almond milk on top of it and eat it like a cereal. But let me show you guys how to make it. So first and foremost, we're going to preheat our oven to 325 degrees. And then we're going to take a piece of parchment paper and just cover our baking sheet. This is all prep work to make things easier down the road. The next thing we're going to do is melt half a stick of butter, so that is 1/4 cup of butter. The reason we do this first is it needs to cool down a lot before we can use it later, because we will be using eggs in this recipe and we don't want the butter so hot that it can cook the eggs. Now that that's done and cooling down, we're going to add 1 cup of almonds to our food processor. Now the almonds need to be done first for reasons that I will explain later, but the trick is to pulse them until they are just larger than you want them in your finished product. As you can see, the almonds are now finely chopped, but there still are large chunks. To that, we're going to add 1 cup of pecans, and you'll see in a second me add 1 cup of macadamia nuts. Now, that reason I was going to explain to you guys for pulsing the almonds first is because almonds are a very hard nut, and the pecans and macadamia nuts are a lot softer. Had we put them all at the same time, the pecans and macadamia nuts would be ground very, very finely, and we'd still be left with large chunks of almonds. So we give the almonds a little bit of a head start. Now that all our nuts are a size that I want, I'm just going to pour them out in a bowl because we are going to need our food processor empty for the next step. To our empty food processor, I'm going to add 1/4 cup of pumpkin seeds. Don't worry if there's a little bit of extra nuts in there, it'll all get mixed together in the end. We would just run out of room had we not emptied it. Then we're going to add 1/4 cup of chia seed. To the same food processor, we're going to add 1/4 cup of unsweetened shredded coconut. Make sure it's unsweetened because some of it will have carbs in it, but this stuff isn't too bad. The last thing going into our food processor, before we pulse it all up again, is 1/4 cup of erythritol. Now feel free to go up to half a cup if you really have a sweet tooth, but for me, I seem to have lost that sweet tooth, so 1/4 cup will do. Now that everything's pulsed up, we're just going to go ahead and add it to the bowl with the nut mixture in it. To our bowl, I'm going to be adding a half a teaspoon of salt. If you use salted nuts, I really wouldn't recommend this because it could become too salty. But none of the nuts that I put in here were salted, so I am going to need a little bit. I found that a half a teaspoon is good, but you are going to have to play with this number depending on which nuts are salted and which aren't. After that, we'll be adding 1/2 cup of ground flax meal and then stirring everything together. Once everything is mixed to your satisfaction, get an empty bowl and an egg. You're going to have to separate the egg, so the easiest way I found to do this is to crack it in half and then toss the yolk gently back and forth between the shells. Be careful not to cut the yolk open on the edge of the shell. I'm probably doing this too many times, it usually doesn't take that many, but just for demonstration purposes, I wanted to show you guys. Just roll it back and forth like this and the whites will fall in the bowl beneath it. Now we're going to give the whites just a quick whisking. All you're doing is beating it, you're not trying to make a meringue or anything. And then toss it into your bowl. Now if you remember back to the beginning, we set aside a bowl of melted butter to cool down. To that bowl, you're going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla, mix that in, and then go ahead and pour it in the bowl that contains your granola mixture and your egg whites. This is why we need that butter to cool, because we didn't want it to attempt to cook the eggs when we added it in here. It is now time to mix our granola. You can use your hands or a spatula, but if I use my hands, I'll get yelled at by somebody on the internet for being unhealthy or something. So I'll just go and use a spatula. But you're going to want to mix this really, really well and make sure that everything is the same color, because if there are clumps of egg or butter, it's just not going to work right. Then we're going to pour it onto that baking sheet that we lined at the beginning. Now, the trick here is to spread it evenly and as thin as possible. but a large baking sheet should do for the whole batch. Once it's spread out, you're going to want to pack it down a little bit as you see me doing here. This is going to help everything kind of bind together, that way you get that real crumbly granola feeling. And here's the finished product. So now it's time to stick her in the oven for about 15 to 17 minutes. I think I pulled mine out at 16. Now as soon as your timer goes off and you see it browning a little bit around the edges, go ahead and pull it out and let it cool for 10 to 20 minutes. So now that you guys have seen how to make this, I just wanted to mention that this thing is like a fantastic keto option because it's like 85% fat. So keep that in mind. I'm actually going to be taking this on a road trip here soon. So that's why I kind of made mine without chocolate. There is half of it right behind me here that I drizzled some chocolate on, which I'll show you guys right now. The chocolate you see me drizzling here is literally just Lily's chocolate chips that I have melted in the microwave for like 30 seconds, then mixed up with a spoon. Be careful how long you microwave it for because you don't want to burn your chocolate, but then just drizzle it on top. But with that, it is time for the taste test. So I'm just going to grab a little bit here, as you can see, and give it a go. Now this stuff is fantastic. I added just a few different nuts that you guys saw, but you can add whatever you want to it. You can even sprinkle some cinnamon in there, maple syrup, whatever you're feeling. But for me, this gives me the feeling of granola without actually having all the carbs. But with that, guys, I'm going to close the video. If you like the video, leave it a like. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment sections. And if you have not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for, guys? Hit that subscribe button, help me out, and you get to see more awesome recipes like this. But with that, I will see you in the next one.